Park Tool crank puller was one of the first bicycle tools I bought. Park Tool has various versions, all designed to achieve the same thing. I have the CWP7 crank puller without a handle, meant to use with an adjustable wrench. And the crank is tightened onto the spindle with a crank bolt. Mostly older style cranks seal this bolt with a dust cap. And before you get to the part where you can take the crank off the spindle, you'll need to remove the dust cap, and the crank is held into place with a crank bolt. I have a Park Tool crank bolt wrench, which has a 14mm socket on one side and an 8mm hex tool on the other. In this case, I'll be needing the socket wrench part. Make sure the tip is rotated far enough outwards, or to remove it altogether, or you'll be like me and think the crank puller won't move in any further because the threads are dirty instead of the press already sitting against the crank bolt. Be careful not to cross thread the fine threads in the crank, especially when the dust caps are missing. The threads might be dirty, making it difficult to get the crank puller into place. It's a good thing to remove the chain and lay it on the bracket housing before removing the crank. And the threaded part of the crank puller is screwed into the crank arm, and when in place, the rotating tip presses against the bottom bracket spindle, pushing itself and the crank with it away from the spindle. And if the crank puller goes in about 1/2 inch, you're good to go. And while holding the crank with one hand, the other can rotate the press clockwise with the help of an adjustable wrench. I never had too much difficulty getting a crank off with this tool, no matter how old and beat up they were. If a crank won't budge, it's just a matter of exerting a bit of extra force. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and let me know what your tips and tricks are, if you have any. And be sure to check out the next video. Bye for now.